Hey, this is Sean here, and for today's video, I want to talk about what to look for in land. And I get this question quite often from different people looking for land and say, hey, what should I look for? I really want to get out there on the land. I want to do this. I want to do that. What do I look for? And it's a great question. It really is, and because it's very complex. And it's actually not simple to answer, to be honest with you. And one thing that I'll mention right off the bat is one good thing to look at when searching for land is to look at what other people's mistakes have been. Okay, I'm going to get to a few things that are to look for in land, but to also look for what other mistakes have been made. Now, I made a video a while ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, called the top 5 mistakes that homesteaders make, and I threw an extra one in there, so really there's 6. And there's 6 mistakes, and I won't go into any kind of detail now, and I'll just highlight a few of them for you. And the first mistake is that people don't understand why they're going out to the land, whether it's to hobby, to homestead, to be off-grid, to survive, whatever your reasoning excuse me, is understanding why you're doing it. This is a really big mistake, because when it gets really tough and hard, that why is going to be what gets you through. The second thing would be the financial cost, right? So a lot of people say, oh, well, it doesn't cost that much money to buy some land, and I'm going to go do this. I'm just going to drive a trailer out there and live off grid, and it's going to be fine. Most people underestimate the cost. Okay, so there is a cost, a financial cost to owning land. Okay, all the maintenance, you got to take care of the roads, you got to bring in material. It's not so simple as I'm just going to go drive a trailer out onto the land and live and meet my own needs. Most people underestimate the cost. Again, watch that video on the top 5 mistakes that homesteaders make. The third is just the physical toll that it takes. Okay, the physical toll that it takes to work land. And so you need to really understand what it is that you're trying to do, and what it means to actually work the land. And so there's the physical cost, and there's the financial cost, and there's a lot of people just make the mistake of buying the wrong property in the first place. Oh. And yeah, okay, buying the wrong property in the first place. And I'll give you one example. So somebody says they're going to go out to the land and they're going to build this like an e-commerce business, and so they're going to they're leaving the rat race behind, and they're going to go build their empire and an e-commerce site and do all of their business online. They go buy a property, they get out there, they love it. No cell service and no internet service. Okay. So they buy the wrong property, or they want to farm it in some way. They have some idea of what they want to do into land, so they're going to try and conform the land to what they want to do, as opposed to either finding the right property in the first place or going, this is the land I have, what wants to grow here? What would work well here? Okay, so you kind of got to take it that way. All right. And then the other one is lack of planning. Okay, so lack of planning are some of the biggest mistakes. Those are some of the biggest mistakes I see very consistently throughout homesteading when I'm working with clients or just talking with people. And and so we own some of those as well. Okay, so it's not to say like, oh, there's all those people over there make all these mistakes. We've made some of those mistakes. Okay, but let's get to like, what do you look for in land? All right, let's talk about it. First, obviously you have to understand what it is you're trying to do. Really, I go back to that why. Understanding why you are doing what you're doing. What is it you want to go do? Do you want to just hobby? And that's totally fine. Is this a part-time property that you're going to hobby? Maybe you're going to plant some trees out there and have a recreation property. Is it a place where you're going to live full-time? But are you going to live out there full-time but still be working full-time in town? Okay, so there's proximity issues there. And I'm sorry I'm squinting because we have a fire going here. So there's the location piece. Of course, that's key. The area that you want to live in, proximity to family, proximity to work, proximity to markets, all of those key things need to be kept in mind. So understanding why you're doing what you're doing is really key. Now that can change over time. That's fine, but you have to have an initial why. Okay, why do I want to find land? And that's going to help drive the what kind of land. Okay, now with that being said, let's just assume that you have your why. You know what you're doing. And maybe that is, no, I'm going to go live full time. I'm going to have 1 foot in this world, and I'm going to have 1 foot in this world, and I want a low maintenance homestead, and I want to be able to grow some of my own food from my property. I want to raise some animals, but I want a low maintenance homestead. Okay, I don't need a lot of land. I don't want 100 acres. I don't want a farm. Okay, and I get that, and that's not a bad approach. So here are the 3 things that I would say that I would be looking for in land. Okay, and then I might talk about a couple others, but okay. So the first thing is access. Okay, access. And a lot of people say, like, what? Access? Yeah, access. Winter access. All right, if you're in a cold climate, winter access. I mean, there's countless properties up here in North Idaho and Montana or whatever that are 3-season access properties, unless you have like a snowmobile or something. Okay, so you have to have access to your property, physical access to your property. There's other places that flood in the spring, and you know the roads are trash, and you can't hardly drive on. People, I mean, even up here in North Idaho, there's some people that they really can't get to their properties, or they have this just terrible roads to get there. So access, or having to go on 6 or 8 or 10 miles of forest road that's not maintained in the winter. I mean, I've seen all of these things. This is a huge problem. Now, the second part of access is, do you need cell service? Do you need internet service? Okay, living rural, this is a big deal. And so, when we were looking for land, we had on our checklist, yes, literally a checklist was, how was the cell service when I went and checked out the property? What are the internet capabilities up here? Because that's important to us. Okay, so you have to understand if it's not important to you, if you're like, no, in fact, I would prefer no cell service and no internet. Well, there you go. But at least understanding it and then having that physical access. The second thing would be water. So understanding what you want to do, and I'm assuming that you want to grow some food and raise some animals, need good sources of water. Now I would say at least 2 sources of water. Okay, 2 sources of water. Okay, the first source could be a well. It could be a spring that you have access to. And the second one you can develop yourself, if you have the capabilities, like rainwater catchment. It's like, okay, if you have everything else is lining up and you have, you're at good access on all the things that you need, and you have, a good well, and you're like, no, I will set up rainwater catchment, and that's going to be my secondary source of water. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. But ideally, you would have, say, a well, and then a stream or a spring, etc. Okay, that would be the ideal. And then the rainwater catchment would be tertiary. But I wouldn't turn down a great property because it only had a well. I would then say, okay, I want a primary source as the well, and I want a secondary source to be able to get to the well water, and then I'm going to develop rainwater catchment. Okay, that's totally fine. Okay, and then the third thing is structures. Okay, structures, and we see this a lot. People they come up here, or they want to go out to the land. They don't have very much money. And, so they take a trailer out onto the land and they go, oh, we're going to build a house. All right. Well, they run out of money. The house never gets built because everybody underestimates how much it's going to cost and how much work it really is. And then they have to leave within 2 years. Okay. So a lot of people come out to the land and leave within 2 years. And again, I really recommend you go back and watch that video because I think it's good. I really do. I think it's insightful. Okay, so you need to make sure it has structures. And I would say like 9 times out of 10, an existing structure on the property or structures is important. Okay, that includes a house, and maybe it's a barn and maybe it's fencing. You need to consider all of those things. Okay. So those are the main things I would say. I'm gonna shift this a little bit because the fire decided to just get me. All right. So again, water, access, structures, and there's a lot of other litany of things. And again, that depends on what you want to do. Like to me, those are the basics. That's the foundation. And then it's like, okay, well, if you want a market garden, you really need to understand like the solar aspect that you have, the aspect of the property. Are you sloped? Are you level? You know, how much moisture? What's the soil? There's 100 other things that you can consider when looking for land. But really consider those things, like all those things: access, structures, water. You know, and again, prior to that is the why. Okay, that's the why. Why am I doing this? You know, is this a weekend property that I'm going to go to half a dozen times a year? Is this a full-time property, but I'm going to live in town? I literally just got, I ran into somebody not too long ago who said like, oh, I got this great deal. I've got this opportunity, this great deal on this property. That's, you know, there's, I don't know if there's, I don't even remember if there were structures out there or not, but it was like, this is awesome deal. It's really cheap. And I'm like, why is it cheap? Because right now, or I should say not right now, but even just a little while ago, land was not cheap. It's been going up and up and up for many years here in North Idaho. And it turns out, and I started probing a little bit and asking questions, it's like, this is 13 miles off of any county maintained road. I'm like, okay, so what, you're going to plow 13 miles in the wintertime? And then I was like, well, maybe this will just be a 3-season. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be a 3-season property unless you're gonna plan on taking snow. It's just that was a non-starter. It really was, for the situation that this person was in. It was an absolute non-starter. It didn't even pass go. It shouldn't even have been on the criterion. So that's the key is doing the analysis and looking at why do you want to do what you want to do. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Again, I recommend the 5 mistakes that homesteaders make, and I'll put a link to it at the end of this video. And leave me a comment. Let me know what is it you look for in a property. What do you think? What would you add to that list of water access and structures as a foundation? Understanding that there's, you know, dozens and dozens of other things, but what do you think is really important? Okay, I appreciate that. Like, subscribe, and comment. All right, we'll see you guys.